Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really glad to see everyone who's joining, coming into this webinar. Thank you. We have a growing community of practice and really value your participation and engagement today. My name is Ali Gillespie, and I'm the Network Engagement Coordinator with the Refugee Self-Reliance Initiative, or the RSRI. So on behalf of the RSRI, I'm excited to welcome you to this session of our webinar and learning series, 12 Months, 12 Domains. This series is designed to take a deeper, more intentional look at the Self-Reliance Index, or the SRI, by focusing on one domain at a time. So for those unfamiliar, the Self-Reliance Index is a measurement tool containing 12 domains that focuses on a refugee household's basic needs, resources, and sustainability, with a mind to understanding how self-reliant households are and how that shifts over time and with different shocks around the world. So domains measure conditions and assets that increase the likelihood that refugee households will be able to continue meeting their needs into the future. If you're interested in learning more about the SRI, you can access resources on our website or by contacting the RSRI Training and Technical Support Manager, Ned Meerdink. There are lots of ways that we can support your application of the SRI and your programming, and we are very eager to help. So over the course of this year, we are hosting a monthly webinar that will spotlight one of the SRI's 12 domains. And the goal here is really to move beyond high-level discussion and really dig into what each domain looks like in practice. What does it mean for program design, for policy, and for how we understand and support refugee self-reliance across different contexts? And one of the core understandings of the SRI is that responses in all sectors can and should contribute to promoting self-reliance. And so our domain by domain series in 2026 hopes to highlight this in detail. Throughout the series, you can expect focused discussions, practical insights and resources, expert perspectives, and real-world case studies from practitioners and members of the RSRI's broader community of practice and network. Together, these conversations are meant to support learning, reflection, and action, using the SRI not just as a measurement tool, but as a framework for deeper understanding and more responsive programming. Today, we're focusing on education and its role in advancing refugee self-reliance across diverse contexts. Education is a lifelong process that shapes refugees' ability to navigate systems, access opportunities, and exercise meaningful choice. The Self-Reliance Index tracks the attendance of school-aged children within refugee households, as well as if any safety concerns such as discrimination or GBV are preventing such attendance. That said, education's role in self-reliance extends far beyond enrollment. In today's webinar, we'll explore how access to primary, secondary, higher education, and vocational pathways influences how individuals and families rebuild their lives after displacement. Education impacts not only earning potential, but also confidence, social connections, civic participation, and a sense of belonging. At the same time, access is often limited by legal status, language barriers, credential recognition, affordability, and concerns about quality and relevance. Together, we'll move beyond attendance metrics and consider whether education systems truly equip learners with the skills and opportunities that they need. Ultimately, this conversation invites us to think more holistically about education, not just as access to classrooms, but as a foundation for resilience, dignity, and opportunity across generations. So we will begin with a presentation from Amir Radfar. Amir is a technical and vocational education and training, or TVET, officer at UNHCR, where he works to expand refugees' access to quality skills development and employment pathways. With over 25 years of experience in vocational education and workforce development, he focuses on strengthening links between education systems and labor markets to support the economic inclusion and self-reliance of displaced populations. Prior to UNHCR, he worked with TÜV Rheinland in Southeast Asia and contributed to the international promotion of Germany's dual vocational training system through iMove at BIB. He has also advised organizations including UNESCO, Univoc, UNEP, UNESCAP, OHCHR, and GIZ on skills development and workforce integration. So welcome, Amir. And after Amir shares, we'll move to our panel discussion, where we'll hear panelists' insights from their work across different contexts, highlighting innovative programming approaches and policy efforts related to refugee education and self-reliance. And we have a really great panel lined up today. So the first panelist I'd like to introduce is Azia Jabarkil. Asia is the founder of Refugees Income Integration through Skills and Education, or RISE, an organization supporting Afghan refugee and Pakistani girls through education, leadership development, and advocacy. A former DAFI scholar in Pakistan, she established RISE to expand access to community-based learning and empowerment initiatives. Now based in Canada, she leads the organization remotely while pursuing a degree in governance, leadership, and ethics at Huron University College at Western University. Asia also serves as treasurer of the Tertiary Refugee Student Network, supporting refugee students' access to higher education. Next, please join me in welcoming Clusius Maranga. Maranga is an education officer at Refuge Point, where he works to support urban refugees in accessing quality education opportunities. His work focuses on strengthening pathways for skills development, personal growth, and long-term self-reliance. Prior to this role, he served as a research assistant at the Institute for Development Studies at the University of Nairobi, contributing to research on human development. His experience bridges research and practice in advancing inclusive education. Our next panelist is Becky Aleman. Becky is an educator and youth worker based in Austin, Texas, and serves as senior program manager at Girl Forward. She leads programs that support refugee and immigrant teen girls through in-school initiatives, mentoring, and a literacy-focused summer camp. With over 20 years of experience, she has developed youth programs across schools, cultural institutions, and community organizations in Austin and New York City. Their work centers on fostering leadership, identity development, and a sense of belonging among young people. And last, but certainly not least, our final panelist, Buhedwa Iragi. Buhedwa is a researcher and advocate for refugee rights with lived experience of displacement. He currently serves as a research officer at the Refugee-Led Research Hub, where he contributes to research and evidence building on refugee issues. He holds a background in international relations and security studies from Daystar University in Nairobi, Kenya. And prior to this role, he worked with Amnesty International in the Great Lakes and East and Horn of Africa region, focusing on advocacy, campaigning, and research on refugees and migrants. So again, welcome to all of our speakers and panelists. We're really, really grateful to such a great group for sharing their time and expertise today, as well as to everyone who's joined us for being part of this conversation. Throughout the webinar, we encourage you to engage, reflect, and think about all the ideas shared today and how they might apply to your own work and contexts. Some final housekeeping notes. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. But if you have any questions during the session, we ask that you please add them to the Q&A box, which is where we'll be looking for questions. Captions are available in multiple languages. To access captions, turn to the Zoom menu on your screen, select captions, and then select your speaking language. With that, I'm so pleased to kick off our 12 months, 12 domains webinar on education and self-reliance today. And I will turn it over to Amir for his featured presentation. Over to you, Amir.
Thank you so much. And it's a great pleasure and honor to be part of today's conversation. I really appreciate this opportunity on behalf of UNHCR's education section. So I'm currently in Thailand, but actually I should be based in Copenhagen with colleagues, but I came actually for home visit. And I was very excited, honestly, when I heard that there is this opportunity to share something from what we are learning, also what we are experiencing, specifically on the topic of work-based learning. That's the main topic of today's discussion from our side, and I'm sharing on behalf of UNHCR's education. And I'm working for tertiary education team of UNHCR. I guess many of you already know that we have the education section, which is supporting tertiary education access. Of course, we have basic education, which covers primary, secondary education, and then we have connected education team, colleagues who are supporting access to online and connected learning programs. And of course, in my role, I'm also trying to promote more access to vocational education programs on the tertiary education system, because we have also livelihoods and self-reliance, economic inclusion part of UNHCR. They're also working on a skills development, but mainly actually on a non-formal space of, let's say, education. So we are mainly with formal education system, and the topic of The session actually I really want to focus is mainly on work-based learning. And it's interesting because before joining this webinar just a couple of hours ago, and the meeting actually we were invited as participant. I was there with a few colleagues from UNHCR. It was organized by Africa German Business Association, by qualification and skills committee of that association. We had also presenters from Africa region countries, specifically on the continental Tibet strategy, which includes refugees. And we were happy to hear about also the importance of work-based learning from the Tibet side, meaning that even the Tibet, meaning technical and vocational education programs, which are supposed to be more practical, but then we see actually that there are concerns about lack of linkages between the schools, even the vocational education providers with the industries. That's why most of the students who are even going to technical training institutions, they really don't get that much hands-on trainings or hands-on skills from the real workplace. That's the real meaning of work-based learning. So, and I guess many of you already know this experience if you have been in university, that most of the university programs in countries where we have the refugees, specifically low mid-income countries, we have lack of access to traineeship, any sort of real work-based learning opportunities for refugee students. I guess also for the national students, meaning that we finish the education, we get the bachelor degrees, but still, we don't have that much opportunities to practice and to learn from the real workplace. So I just wanted to give you this overview because after this webinar, also I'm attending as participant in another meeting organized by migration organization, international migration organization, and that's also about labor mobility. And I'm sure in labor mobility discussion also, we have so many components around actually this work-based learning. So with that actually very short background, uh, I've prepared actually a short presentation. I'll share it with you. You just tell me if you can see the screen.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I tried actually just to give very quick and short background, but I guess, you got the main message. So, as you have seen also the key message behind the title of this webinar is also we are going beyond the enrollment because generally speaking, we have access to education for refugees. We have some good numbers, and we can see actually the growth, for example, for higher education. Currently, this is, of course, the data we have from 2024, and I'm sure very soon we'll have the data for 2025. So we have like 9% access of refugee population, those eligible to go for universities, for tertiary education. Of course, with secondary education, we have some issues. That's why we see actually the drop from 42% like to 37%. Of course, this is the global average. But you see actually for primary and for pre-primary, still the numbers are good. But as we keep saying, actually, it's not just about the access because the challenge becomes very clear when we look at the outcome of education, specifically after secondary education and after tertiary education, because we believe that after all these education programs, specifically for tertiary education, we are really expecting to see good incomes. So the big question is always for all of us, specifically for refugees, okay, what is happening after this access? Because access alone is not enough, though we also have still challenges with access because we are really targeting 15% by 2030 for tertiary education. That's the goal, 15 by 30. And I'm sure many of you have heard at tertiary education level, this 15 by 30 goal of UNHCR, and we are trying actually to get the support from many NGOs, many universities through different networks like Each One Take One. There are so many actually like players. They really want to give more access for higher education to refugees, where we can also promote vocational education, or we call it TVET in short, under tertiary education, and also connected education with the same level. But again, I mean, we are now really focusing on more also on outcome side of the education we are providing, specifically at tertiary education level. where we are today. We are at in a moment of progress, as we said, but we have made also important gains in expanding access to some skills development programs. And we hope that that real question, which is more about the opportunities for refugees after education and after graduating, we can actually support them in a way that they can see more and more opportunities for getting access to labor market. Just to give you again an overview of the different actually pathways under tertiary education support of UNHCR. Of course, DAFI is well known, connected higher education, I already mentioned. And then we have opportunities for refugees from secondary education, sometimes from undergraduate pipeline. They go for resettlement to receiving countries for their education at tertiary level. It can be postgraduate or undergraduate. So that's why we call it third country pathways, which is also very attractive for the refugees because they really want to get to resettlement. And then we have technical and vocational education as part of tertiary, because I'm just repeating, because we have also TFET out of tertiary education or even out of formal education space. But with tertiary education support of UNHCR, we cover actually formal TVET. And then, of course, we have national inclusion of refugees into to university programs. This is mainly the support of the countries' higher education systems to accept refugees and to get them enrolled. And one of the biggest challenges is this connection between education and labor markets in general, where we have the refugees in universities, because in many contexts, what the students learn and they get education from their university programs does not really match what their employers need. And that's exactly the situation, not just for refugees, even for the nationals. And of course, it becomes more challenging for refugees, especially with the unfair access to labor market, because we use this word of unfair because even in European countries, there are some evidences and reports that it shows for migrants and also for refugees, the competition, of course, is always very high. And also there is a kind of, I don't know, it's a kind of discrimination always, I mean, for the refugees and migrants, to get access to proper jobs when they compete with the nationals. So that's why even it becomes more challenging when it comes to that connection between higher education and employment and self-reliance. And this is really the missing link because on one side, we supply the education, we have the academic and knowledge and qualifications and the supply side. And on the other side, we have employment and self-reliance. And we want to see the quick income generating actually opportunities for refugees. But what's often missing is the bridge between these two. And that bridge usually includes things like internship, traineeship, apprenticeship, or any sort of work-based learning. And work-based learning in general, it's like any kinds of learning and skills development programs, soft or hard, or any types of actually hands-on training, which is coming from the real workplace, not just from the school or from the university, or even from the lab inside the universities, because we have seen some curriculums, they say that 70% of the education we provide is practical. Of course, it's practical, but it's not really real practical from the real workplace. It's happening maybe in the workshops with some equipment they have, but there is no connection with the employers. There is no chance of doing the internship in a real workplace. That's exactly what we keep focusing. And this slide actually just came from the meeting I attended this afternoon, I just mentioned, because there was a meeting organized by this Africa German Business Association, and I saw there was a colleague from Center of Global Development and this international research center. Actually, it was about also the challenge of work-based learning and the lack of access to real work-based learning for technical and vocational education students. And these are the students, they are supposed really to get really hands-on training programs. And I took just a quick kind of a screenshot from that presentation, because in one of the countries, I don't recall actually the name of that country in West Africa, they did this tracing and they asked just simply actually how many of those students who graduated from the TVET centers, they could actually get access to any work opportunities, work experience, only 14%, and only 9% of them actually they had internship. So, and that's exactly the situation now with refugee students. I'm sure at secondary education level, even it's more challenging because we see naturally some sort of internships at higher education level, but much less in secondary education. So we need to rethink how we define success, and access is just the starting point. Enrollment, of course, is very important. We keep increasing the enrollment because we have the target even to go for this 15% or even more beyond, because we are still much behind the global kind of enrollment and access to higher education for refugees comparing to global rates. But again, while we want to increase the enrollment, we are also trying to focus on the employment outcome, because that's also the interest of the donors and also the NGOs and international partners. They are invited actually to support the outcome side of the education we provide for refugees. So that's why this real work-based learning becomes really very, very important for us. And instead of separating education and employment in two different stages, we think that work-based learning, it connects them. It's just a bridging actually between the theory and academic side of the education, and also the practical side, and the employability of refugee students will be strengthened actually if they have the chance of practicing in real workplace. I took some of these images and real photos of refugee students, DAFI students from different countries, because these images just showing what work-based learning can look like in practice. And these are like the students practicing out of their universities in real workplace. And in some fields, of course, as you know it very well, because of the nature of the university programs, that there is already actually good components, good practical components, for example, in areas like nursing, dentistry, laboratory work, hospitality. So usually these students, they have naturally better access to internships because that's already naturally, organically part of the university programs. But when it goes to the other actually like fields of studies, like human science, social science, even engineering, I have talked with some refugee students graduated from engineering programs in different countries, and they said even not even 1 week or even short like 2 3 days practice opportunities in real workplace for them. It's just laboratory and workshops works in their universities. And again, it comes also the issue with the labor mobility, because most of the receiving countries and the platforms like Talent Beyond Boundaries and other actually NGOs who are supporting UNHCR and refugees to get the refugees into Europe or Canada, Australia, other countries who need labor workforce, and they really want to take from refugees. But most of the cases, we see that at least 2 years work experience is required. And part of that work experience can come from internship opportunities. So that's why, uh, and this approach should not be limited to one level of education, as we keep saying, because work-based learning can be integrated across the entire system from secondary to vocational training, because we assume that even the university students who are really engineering level, they are studying at engineering, or they are going actually to like even like vocational schools, secondary vocational schools. We assume that because of the name of the program, they are practicing. But again, honestly, based on the evidences, that's not really the meaning of real work-based learning. Real work-based learning is one step behind employment. And that's why, we keep encouraging the partners to create some joint advocacy programs, and also to bring more partnership to this space, to make sure that we are working together to promote more access to work-based learning opportunities for all refugee students, which is also helping the national students and refugee host institutions. One key factor here actually is the guidance and mentorship, but that mentorship is mainly in a way that we should make sure that many students, when they choose their programs and when they want to actually go for their university programs, they understand very well actually how the quality of that program looks like. It's not just about the scholarship, even it's supported by UNHCR, DAFI, or any NGOs, or even given by I don't know any other scholarship opportunities. But we really need to make it clear through kind of a good mentorship program for them before choosing the program, to make sure that there are really good skills and practical components which are aligned with skills in demands in the market, in the labor side, so they can actually choose the right programs with good quality. Otherwise, still, I mean, we are talking about this mentorship usually at the end of the graduation, which is helpful, but I think fundamentally that mentorship will be more helpful if we guide the students to choose more quality programs with more actually practical components inside the program before starting their education, so they make sure that they're more aligned with the job market. So when we look at effective programs, they share some common features. They include practical learning, real work experience. And when we say real work experience, that comes also with their interaction with the employers, even small workshops, small companies, or let's say even in small offices. If you go actually as a student to practice, you are interacting with the people, so that interaction with the people increasing your communication skills, and also like your problem based solving techniques, and other actually like uh, uh, different types of team working skills, because you are already part of the real workplace, so you're interacting with the people. And for us as UNHCR, we believe that that partnership is very key. That's why we are here now today, because we are partnering with different platforms. And we want to make sure that we keep actually encouraging the NGOs, the partners, the international agencies, to include refugees in any discussion, in any space related to work-based learning. Plus, also, we get the support from associations, business associations, employers. That's why we as participants, we are attending into different meetings just to promote this concept and context of refugees inclusion in work-based learning, because we need to work more closer with the private sectors, also with the business associations, with different actually actors, to make sure that if there are any potential opportunities to include refugees, then we create that pathways for their employment. Because when we talk about increasing employability of refugees, it's more about, as I said, practicing and getting the chance to work in real workplace, and that creates a kind of work experience in a way that the refugee students, after finishing their education at any level, they will have better chance and better employability opportunities. So refugee-led organizations, they can play a very critical role. And this is something I really want to highlight. I don't know actually who are participating from refugee-led organizations in this meeting, but this is the message we should take to the people in the space of refugee-led organizations that they're working, because we believe that we need to create some new, maybe refugee-led organizations in different countries to focus on this work-based learning, because currently we don't have any specific or a specialized refugee-led organization on this space. Or it can be actually a part of actually like a scope of work of some RLOs which are closer to this space. So that's something we really need to work with the refugee-led organizations, where we have a strong voice of refugees, and we see the strong role of mentorship, peer-to-peer support, and also dealing with the complex systems to fill out this gap. Otherwise, we keep actually supplying the education. We keep talking about actually the problem and the issues around the access to labor market, also labor mobility issues, lack of work experience. But at the end of the day, we really need to make sure that we are really working together to strengthen this shift. And DAFI, actually, the UNHCR higher education support, is already actually really doing the best we can to promote this access to work-based learning, and also to create more additional skills for refugees through different channels, mentorship and other sort of actually like skills development programs. And that's what I just wanted to, on behalf of UNHCR's education section, as I said, specifically tertiary team, to highlight for today's webinar, that we believe that from education to self-reliance, where we really have the opportunities for refugees to create quick income and to be part of the society, to work, and also to support other people, because when the refugees are on jobs, I'm sure they're the ones usually they come back actually to these sort of platforms and to create their own ISO, maybe NGOs, and to help more refugees, to create more job opportunities, to create more skills for other refugees at different education levels. So that's why we need to work together, and from education to self-reliance, and to create faster income. That component of work-based or workplace internship and traineeship opportunities for refugees is always on the top. So I'm not sure if I'm over my time, but that was my last slide, and I'll stop here because I'm sure there would be also chance to discuss through the Q&A, and also after the webinar. We would be very happy because the time is very limited. We cannot really put everything, but that was just to give you the overview of what we are thinking beyond the enrollment, beyond the tertiary education, specifically on employability of refugees who are finishing their education at tertiary level. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Amir, for the great presentation and for highlighting the move beyond enrollment and access to a focus on outcomes, and really showcasing that missing link there of the practical hands-on experience that can really help to facilitate self-reliance. So thank you for a great presentation. You already have some questions in the Q&A box from our attendees, and we'll bring you back for the audience Q&A later in the presentation. But thank you again. Now we'll move on to our panel discussion. So we'll bring on the panel here, and we'll get into our first question, which will be round robin style. So I'll call on each panelist to give us a brief 2-minute response before we dive deeper into today's topic. So starting with Buhedwa, would each panelist please briefly tell us a bit about you and or your organization's work as it relates to education?
Mhm. Thank you, Ali. Thank you very much also for putting together this really important discussion. Um, I am a researcher, and I've been with the Refugee-Led Research Hub for now 5 years. And just speak a bit about the hub. So the Refugee-Led Research Hub is an initiative that was born out of the Refugee Study Center of the University of Oxford. So the hub really provides this platform or avenue for individuals with lived experience to lead research, and that's from start to finish. And aside from that, the hub also does two other important critical program, so to say. So this first program is academic bridging. And with academic bridging, the hub mostly provides support and facilitates access to graduates degree programs to individuals with lived experience or forced displacement globally. Then the hub also delivers the program of professional development and placements. This is really a critical aspect of the Refugee-Led Research Hub, where we try as much as possible to bring on board graduates and provide them with professional development skills that could link them to opportunities and areas of passion and expertise that they would really want to positively contribute. So the hub currently operates in Nairobi and Kakuma. There's offices in Kampala, Uganda, and there's offices in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and now the East Oxford offices as well at the Oxford University. So one really important aspect of RLRH is that we perceive or we take pride in posturing refugees as agents of change and refugees being able to lead transformative activities within their community and making sure that they are the ones also moving the pieces and seeing the change that they want to see within their areas of concern. So I'll stop it there for now and turn it back to you, Ali.
Thank you, Bahedwa. Over to you, Becky.
Hi, thanks, Ali and RSRI for having me. I'm Becky Aliman. I'm with Girl Forward. We are a nonprofit based in Chicago, Illinois, and in Austin, Texas. And while we're a nonprofit, really how we describe ourselves as a community of support that's dedicated to creating and enhancing opportunities for teen girls who have been displaced globally from their home countries, so due to things like war, conflict. But so like what that really means to me to be a community support is that like when girls arrive to Austin or Chicago, like we want to be a Girl Forward like wants to be able to offer like a soft place for them to land, right? Somewhere where they can kind of like be like, okay, I'm in a new place, like how can I begin to understand like my environment, my new community, where I'm at, what I even want to do. And so my favorite part of my job is like we get to really like once the girls arrive and like we like start to build trust and they're engaged in our programs. It's really about like having them like shape their dreams, right, and build the agency that Bohed was just talking about. And so let's see. We are like through our connection education is we do this through in-school programming, after-school programming. We have virtual after-school tutoring for the girls. We also run a year-long mentoring program, and the year-long is at a minimum. We often see girls stay with their paired mentors for 2, 3, 4 years through their high school duration. Um, and then we also run a 4-week literacy-based summer camp called Camp Girl Forward, which is one of my favorite parts of my job. And we root all of our curriculum within the school programs and our camp in like 4 themes. And we call these the 4 Ws. And so our 4 Ws are wellness, wisdom, wallet, and world. And so through these themes, we are able to talk about so many different things that the girls are interested in themselves, right? That the things that they want to learn and know for who they are, for their community. And so that kind of just gives us a lot of flexibility to explore, like, yes, like support them academically, maybe getting into college if that's what they're interested in doing, doing well academically in high school. But then also just getting to explore like the city around them and what opportunities like really exist. And so, yeah, I'll leave it there. But our camp is coming up in July. So if anybody knows people in Chicago or Austin who want to join, let me know.
Great. Thank you, Becky. And next we'll hear from Asia.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. My name is Asia, and I'm joining from the Tertiary Refugee Student Network, in short TRSN. TRSN is a refugee-led network that focuses on higher education. We support refugee students who want to enter and succeed in university and other post-secondary education. Our work includes connecting students, creating peer support, raising refugee voices, and speaking up for more fair and inclusive higher education system. At TRSN, we believe refugee students are not only learners, they are also leaders, change makers, and important voices in education. I will leave it here.
Great. Thank you, Asia. And over to Maranga next.
Thank you. My name is Maranga. I'm an education officer at Refugee Point. Refugee Point is an organization that works with the most vulnerable refugees to help them rebuild their lives. Through two programs, we have a self-reliance program at Refugee Point, and also through resettlement and other pathways to safety. At Refugee Point, we are mainly focused on working with refugees in the urban setup, which is currently we are in Nairobi, and whenever we have students we are supporting in our program, we try to link them with all the other services within our program. That includes counseling and a livelihoods program that supports them to help them reach self-reliance. So at Refugee Point, we support students at different levels and categories. That is from early childhood through primary school to secondary school and at vocational level. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Maranga. And thanks all for those introductions. And great to see how many of your different programs support refugees at different aspects of the lifespan, from early childhood development to primary and secondary school, and all the way to tertiary higher education as well. So for my next question, I'd like to start with Maranga this time. Can you describe an educational approach in your context that supports longer-term self-reliance beyond emergency assistance?
So beyond the emergency assistance, as Amir talked of a number of factors of a missing link. So to fill this missing link, it is very important to think of the global frameworks and policies that have been developed to help deal with challenges that refugees are facing. There is an approach whereby a backward design approach that scholars have proposed, whereby we have to look at what we envision to achieve, then delve backwards and ask ourselves a number of questions on how we are going to achieve these issues. For instance, we want to ensure that our education that is long term and continues beyond secondary education. And for this to happen, we have to look back and ensure that education is not disrupted from early childhood all through to technical level and beyond, because we find that refugees actually they are willing to learn and they are willing to pursue studies beyond what they are learning. When we talk of self-reliance, I believe we are talking of factors that are beyond economic and livelihoods, because studies have shown that when we talk of self-reliance, we have to ensure that learners are able to participate meaningfully in their societies. So the learning that they acquire, we have to look at the outcomes and try to see if they are also able even to rebuild their communities. That is according to different studies. For education to go beyond emergency assistance and be sustainable, we have to find different pathways through which the learners are going to make their self-reliant in the long term. In most cases, we find that learners do not have some learners, as we have seen, do not even complete high school, and we have seen policies that try to increase enrollment and completion rates beyond the different categories. If learners are not able to progress from lower levels of learning, and if they are not even able to join at the lowest level, which I believe creates the greatest foundation, then we find that it becomes a challenge even trying to catch up let me use the word catch up. But when learners start at the lowest level and they are consistent through the education system, then it becomes possible and easier to ensure that the education that they are getting is beyond emergency assistance. And for them to realize self-reliance, I believe there have to be different resources, ensuring that there is equity and working on systems change, which I believe entails working with different stakeholders, including governments of different regions and countries, to ensure that inclusion means inclusion and ensuring that refugees or the people who are affected by the policies that are being developed are at the center of designing and contributing solutions to the challenges that are affecting the education system. But I believe most importantly, being creating policies and updating them continuously will be critical to ensuring that self-reliance is realized. And to deal with the challenge of unemployment or the gaps of unemployment, I believe
Moraga,
data is
I might actually pause you here to make sure we can hear from some of our other panelists, but I really appreciate everything you're saying about the foundation of education in early childhood, and also love that you pointed out that education also contributes to meaningful participation of refugees and their societies. So going beyond the learning or livelihoods, but it can lead to so much more. So thank you so much, and we'll hear from you again in a moment. For now, I'd like to turn to Becky for the same question.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So an educational approach in our context, I'm going to talk about our mentoring program. So it is a program, but the approach, right, is beyond that. So we're talking about like a relationship-centered model that can help build agency over time and build those lifelong connections, right? Research shows for young people that even just like one positive youth or one positive adult relationship outside of your parents or your like within your direct community, like one side, like one relationship can make a huge difference. And so we really think about that with our mentoring program. And so girls over their participation in Girl Forward during their high school years, they're often paired on average about 2 years. But like I said, we sometimes see the paired up to 4 years throughout their entire high school career. Um, and these are lifelong connections that the girls have. As soon as I like on my first week of Girl Forward, I met some alumni who shared immediately, like, this is my mentor and this is what we still do. And they're still connected. And these are alums who had been out of Girl Forward at that point, had graduated, 3 or 4 years. And so it's really like the compounding impact of like those relationships, right? That support our alumni to be leaders, right, throughout their generation. And so within our mentoring program and within our other programs, there's a real focus on goal setting, identity development, decision making, right? In addition to the academic support that we want to make sure that we get them, right, at least through high school to make sure they're graduating and have a launching pad to get to the tertiary education. Um, and so through that, right, we know that they're like developing agency. We're in camp. We're doing advocacy role play, whether that's self-advocacy, maybe you're at the doctor's office, but also advocacy on behalf of your entire community. And so those are some of the yeah, that's like our mentoring program and camp is like one approach, right, to get beyond yeah, something like emergency assistance. And I think the way we think about self-reliance too at Girl Forward is we think about that as like not doing things alone, right? Even though it says self, but having the tools, the networks, and right, being able to like shape your voice so that you can really be self-determined in shaping your own future and your own goals. Another approach is creating opportunities for our alums and also other refugee students. So we have a summer internship that helps work with the girls in our camp. They support like leading literature circles at camp. So oftentimes when college students are applying to these internships, I do work to actively recruit maybe refugees who are in college or people with lived experience who've been globally displaced. And so creating those opportunities is also part of our educational approach. And We also have like a pipeline for former participants to join staff at Girl Forward. So that's really important to us. And then two other opportunities at Girl Forward are the youth advisory board. So having our youth participate formally, right, and get that kind of like real world and hands-on experience like Amir was talking about. And then we also have a zine editorial board. So girls are getting paid to like they can submit their art, poetry, anything that they want to self-express around a particular theme for our zine that year called Girls Like Us. And so they get paid for their submissions, right? Because they're doing labor, even if it's a creative process. And so we try to like, we want girls to think expansively about what's possible and like what they might be interested in. And then it's our girls apply to be on the editorial board, so they get to kind of curate the zine and like put what art and submissions come in. And so through that, yeah, all those opportunities and approaches trying to support them to get the hands-on experience, yeah, to support their future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Becky. Thank you for sharing some of the really creative ways that you engage and get girls in the community excited about their passions and excited about learning beyond just the classroom and the school space. So we'll now move on to our next question, and we'll start with Behendwa this time. So the question is, how does access to education and training affect outcomes in other self-reliance domains, such as employment, health and well-being, financial inclusion, safety, social cohesion, etc.?
Thank you, Ali, for this particular question, and I'll reflect on a number of areas, not entirely all of them. So personally, I've interacted and observed a number of things that I would want to reflect upon. So first, as refugees transition from education or higher education. So there's two things you notice, that there's enhanced knowledge, there's enhanced skills, and there's all the readiness to get into the employment. Or if at all there's obstacles, there's a lot of intentionality for them to create some of these opportunities for themselves. Now, there's one thing that I've observed is most of these programs that support higher education, they only leave it at that. And when the refugee goes back to, I would call it a default, there's also elements of frustration, isolation, and all the challenges and complexes that they have to start navigating at that space as well. Where I feel like as individual organizations in education programming, there's really that gap to ensure that there's continued support to see that individuals that have accessed education are able to transition into the different spaces of passion and career in a manner that they would really have loved to to engage. Then another element that I see is there's a whole interconnection. And reflecting on my own journey, I graduated from university and I had so many hopes and so many ambitions. I first had to battle issues of, denigration, issues of stigma. I had to start dealing with all that, and because now I have tools, I have skills that I felt that will enable me to be somewhere. You get to a level where you are really optimistic because you have something to hold on to. So to a greater extent, you find that with access to education, there's there's that push, there's that drive, and there's that hope that you can transform not just your life, but the life of your family, the life of your siblings, and you can even rewrite that script. The traumas that you've gone through, the frustrations that you've gone through as a family, you can see yourselves out of that. But again, you have to go back and grapple with all these barriers that at times will always take you back into those moments, emotional moments of denigration. Um, I think for programming, there's more work that needs to be done because you'd find that it's always like we take a step forward and then we go backwards. We take a step forward, or then we are held down. So that's something that I've personally experienced as a refugee. And now what the hub does is really to provide that intentional support, mentorship, and guidance to see that as a refugee you are able to transition through these different spaces of opportunities and see yourself where you want to be, because you have what it takes. You have all the skills that you need, or you have at least some potential to build upon that can take you to where you should be. And I see a lot of opportunities as well. Refugees that are getting the education, they're getting the skills, they're getting all the professional development enhancements. These they don't sit back. There's a lot of push and hope, and they knock doors. They keep on looking for opportunities here and there. They create these opportunities for themselves. They capitalize on the networks that they now get to interact with at different levels of their academic journeys. And they with their digital skills as well, they get into different networks and different opportunities to see how they can capitalize on the spaces that they've now come in contact with as a result of education, to see how they can carve a new path for themselves. But at every stage, there's still barriers, and that's where organizations really need to um, just do follow-ups and just try to understand the journeys of the individuals that they provided support, because there's that very big gap. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Behenwa, especially for highlighting the ways that barriers sit alongside the things that education brings, such as hope and motivation and optimism for the future, and that those two things are coexisting. We'll turn also to Asia for the same question.
Thank you. I think education affects many parts of life. First, it can improve employment opportunities. Higher education can help refugees get skilled work and better income. It can also support confidence and well-being. When people are learning and growing, they often feel more hopeful and more able to plan for the future. Education can also improve social cohesion. When refugees studies with others, it can build understanding, respect, stronger connections between communities. In this way, education does not only help in one area, it helps in many areas at the same time. So I will give an example of a 13-year-old girl. In Rice Refugee, we teach the girls, the Pakistani and the Afghani girls, we teach them how to make jewelry by hand. So we graduated like more than 150 girls. And now like those girls, they are making jewelry and they are selling that in the market. So they are making the income for their family members, not only for themselves, but for their family members as well. Yeah, that was all from my side.
Great. Thank you, Asia. And also, I feel like this has been brought up a few times by Becky, by Asia, about how self-reliance is beyond the individual. We really think about it as a household, a community. And so I think you both gave great examples of how education facilitates that more community-based, broader self-reliance beyond the individual self. Great. So we'll now turn to our next question, and we'll start with Becky this time. Can you share a story that illustrates how education enabled a refugee individual, household, or community to make progress towards self-reliance?
Sure. I'd love to share a story about one of our alumna. Her name is Fatima. She arrived from Afghanistan several years ago. And the way I've heard her tell the story is that she like really reluctantly joined camp, but it was another girl who had actually arrived that same summer in Austin from Syria. She was like, "Hey, I heard that some girls are going to do this camp. Like, you should go." And Fatima was like, "No, I don't really want to." And she said, basically she was pulled into camp. And she said the first day she just there was something about the warmth of the people that were running the camp that year and the way that they spoke to her. She's just like, I had never like experienced that before. And then she got really into it and spent, the next like 6 weeks at camp having a great time. She was really excited about Girl Forward after that, was paired with a mentor. Um, and they still, I've heard Fatima call her mentor still like, this is my gift. Like, this is the person. She's always expressing so much gratitude for mentor. They had a great relationship. And so I want to talk about Fatima like as the individual, but right back like to supporting a community. So since graduating high school, she like has volunteered to support Girl Forward programs, like specifically camp. So Fatima often comes with us still. This is many years after she's graduated from Girl Forward. She offers interpretation and comes with us to the families. And part of it is like, we have things like other, alums who can do interpretation with us so that we can pay them, right, for that labor. We also have an interpretation service. But Fatima specifically, she's like, I want to tell them in my like in my home languages what this meant to me and like what it can look like for their daughter. Um, and so we have like, yeah, this really beautiful pipeline of alums who are sharing their story. And I want to talk specifically. So Fatima, she is someone who has like supported her. She's the oldest daughter. She's someone who supports her family. She did graduate from high school, enrolled in college, but because of needing to make an income, she started doing some security work at a local mall. And and she's had multiple jobs, right? Because security is like a part-time situation. Last year for camp, we had hired her to actually be our lead teacher, right? So as someone who had like come through the camp, knows the girls, who I knew the girls would trust and want to like learn from. So at some point she had maybe 3 different jobs, but then having been really consistent with her security job, she's now the director of security at the local mall. Um, and so she always says, she's like, I get to tell these big, like buff guys like what to do. She's like, I'm in charge. And so now that she does have that job, the full-time job, she actually just re-enrolled in college classes this past semester. And so just to think about the way that Fatima was able to like, a lot of perseverance, right? A lot of self-reliance and determination. But was able to like has been able to lay this pathway. And I see that when she talks to other girls who are still in the program, they see that it's possible. Whereas sometimes you might see that it's like they might feel cynical or pessimistic. You can see when they talk to Fatima or other alum like Ragad, like that they feel like it's possible and it's hopeful and it's beautiful to be able to see Fatima create this for herself, her family, and then show up this way in the community.
Thank you, Becky, for sharing Fatima's story, and really powerful to hear how she came into the program and now serves as representation of what's possible with your program and with that education. So thank you. We'll turn to Behenwa. Can you please share a story about how education enabled individual, household, or community to make progress towards self-reliance?
Yeah, thank you, Ali. I wanted to share my story because I have like the lived experience journey, and all throughout my life as a refugee in Kenya, I've gone primary level to high school level to university with the generous support of humanitarian organizations. And after completing my university, I didn't really have so much to navigate in terms of networks and opportunities. Uh, but just linking it back to the very first contact that I had with the scholarship I received from the Jesuit Refugee Services, they were able to connect me with the refugee-led research hub. And from there, I started my research trainee journey. They trained me first for a few months, like 6 months. And after the 6 months, I became a research assistant for quite a long period of time, really receiving mentorship, guidance, like getting all the support that I need to get me into leading research. But all these really came with support that also, uh, for me, made me see the light that for sure I can actually practice research and I can get something out of it. This is a skill that I've been preparing for, and this is an opportunity that is also providing the benefits that uh, I, I'm proud of. I would say they are dignified benefits. I feel the value of my inputs. I feel that I'm not just there on the hindsight or just like a support role, but I'm literally leading and taking full control and doing what I I wanted to do. Um, and this has also inspired a number of my friends, refugees that have been around me. Um, I've been able to provide some mentorship personally to first help them apply for university. And most of them have graduated from university. And I've also taken it upon myself to show them the ropes on where and how they can get into opportunities from the beginner levels all the way to early entry, levels in terms of their careers. Some of them are uh, program officers, and they are really doing so well, and they are really happy with the returns that they are getting out of the opportunities that have been available to them. Um, I see that for some of us refugees, there's really hope, and there's really a lot of I would say um, there's a lot of for the lack of a better word, there's just a lot of um, ingrained push that you don't want to leave it at education, and you want to see yourselves in the spaces of influence, in the spaces that you'd feel dignified, you'll feel at the end of the day that your life is turning out into something, and there's hope for you, and there's hope for uh, the people that are around you. So I would share that for now. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Behenwa, for sharing your story. And congratulations on all of your successes. There's so much to be proud of. And I love how you've taken everything that you've learned and that you're passing it along to others as a mentor and as a leader in your community. So thank you again for sharing that. I will now move to our final question for Asia and Maranga before we take a few questions from attendees today. So Asia, we'll start with you. What policy and other systems level changes would most strengthen education and training as a pathway to self-reliance?
One important change is to see higher education as necessary, not optional for refugees. This means we need more scholarships, better recognition of previous studies and qualification, and fewer financial legal barriers. It is also important to give support beyond tuition, such as academic support, mentoring, and career guidance. Another key change is to include refugee in decisions about education. Refugee understands their own challenges and can help shape better solutions. And finally, refugee-led networks like TRSN, and there will be thousands more, should be supported more because they bring lived experiences, strong ideas, and real connection to students.
Great. Thank you for highlighting those important systems level changes that would be needed to strengthen education pathways. And Maranga, we will end with you.
Okay, thank you so much. We realize that we have a lot of very many progressive policies, but the challenges, most of the bigger part of the challenge comes from implementation. So maybe to ensure implementation, it is very important to ensure that policies are accompanied by funding, so that the issues that are highlighted in the policies are actually able to be addressed meaningfully. It is also important to ensure that the policies that are created are able to be monitored over time and progress reported. Because without reporting progress, then it becomes a very big challenge to know where the progress is at the moment, and how to ensure that in other intervention measures can be incorporated to realize the expected outcomes. Also, psychosocial support is very important. Policies should address the issue of psychosocial support, because very many refugees have actually experienced trauma, and without these supports, it becomes a very big challenge to make them realize the expected outcomes. I don't know if I have time, and also supporting in terms of documentation, because you find that there is a very big documentation challenge, whereby without documentation, it becomes a challenge to enroll to different institutions, to progress in their education, and even to get employed in the long run. I think policies should be streamlined in line with national education policies, to ensure that the challenges that learners experienced are actually ironed out. And I believe there is no silver bullet to the challenge, but by different stakeholders working together, then it will be possible to reduce the gaps, to address the policy gaps that are in existence. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, especially for highlighting policy barriers such as documentation and other kind of systems level changes that would be needed to strengthen education and really make an enabling environment for people to be able to seek those opportunities and access them and access the outcomes beyond the classroom as well, including the job market. So thank you all for this great panel discussion. We'll now go ahead and bring back Amir to join us for the audience Q&A. And thank you so much to all the attendees for adding such great questions to the Q&A box. Thank you to Amir for already answering so many of them during our panel discussion. I will ask a question. If anyone would like to answer, please go ahead and unmute and jump in here. But the first question from an attendee, Abuela, is how can systems move beyond consulting refugees to genuinely co-designing education and work-based learning pathways with refugee-led organizations, ensuring decision-making power and not just participation? Would anyone like to take this one on? Okay, maybe oh, Maranga, go ahead.
Maybe just to start off, I think by ensuring that effective participation takes place at different levels of decision and policy making, then I believe that the refugees will not be observers but participants in finding solutions to matters that affect their education. I think, and by effective participation, I think participating meaningfully, whereby their voices are heard, recorded, and addressed. I think by that, it will be possible to make them not just observers, and it will also make them like own the process and become active participants in designing policies and laws that affect the education. Maybe just to start that off.
Great, thank you. Would anyone else like to add on here before we move to our next question?
Maybe just a short comment, because what we see actually, majority of countries we have refugees, low mid-income countries. The big challenge in general is like the education side is not really taking that much from students. This is the general actually situation. So the students actually like the main beneficiaries, they're not really that much part of the programs designing. It's not just about refugees, it's about the entire education system. So, and again, when it comes also to demand side, also we don't see that much strong role and engagement of private sector in education system. Like if you compare, for example, German system with so many other countries, like in Germany, these are the chambers of commerce. Even they take the role to conduct the exams, like specifically for vocational education institutions. The Chamber of Commerce and the companies, they are the ones actually, they conduct the exams from the students because they are the ones who will hire. So imagine actually how we see the engagement and the role of private sector, and the same also goes with the students. So what we as UNHCR and also the partners, we keep doing is like just pushing, integrating, including refugees in any potential space where we see the uh, any even smaller space to engage the students, refugee students, specifically at tertiary level. We see better chance, for refugees because of the level of education they have, and also better voice actually I think we can get from them, because of the level of education they have, and better space honestly from the education institutions we usually receive, including international agencies. Wherever we see that there are some programs, there is potential opportunities to include refugees' voice. This is what we keep doing. But again, it's not really easy task, but this is how it works. I mean, we have to really keep doing, keep working. And I think today's meeting also is part of the same actually kind of effort, like that's why we came together, and we really want to share and to learn and keep moving. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Amir. And yeah, thank you for highlighting also that it goes beyond the role of refugees in the classroom, but also that education systems aren't always kind of engaging students generally in the process, whether they be refugee students or students in a host country. And that just makes me think of kind of the shift that could be more inclusive of recognizing students not just as learners within a classroom, but also as teachers, as people who bring valuable lived experience and knowledge, and the value that they have in classrooms, to facilitate learning amongst their peers as well. So thank you for bringing that point in. We have a question from an attendee, for Asia, who said, graduating around 150 girls in your program is a huge impact. Is this documented? If so, where can we learn more or get some more of that data from?
Can you repeat your question again?
Yes. So the attendee said, acknowledged that your program graduating around 150 girls is a huge impact. So is there a website or maybe a publication or something where attendees can learn more about that program?
Yeah, we have an Instagram page, and we are also working on a website for that. And I will share that with you, and then you can share it with her. so she can see it there. And the Instagram is on the name of Rise Refugee, so it's refugee income integration through skills and education. So she can see all the classes there in the graduation ceremony. Everything is online there.
Great. Thank you, Asia. We'll definitely include um, some of that in our recap email. So attendees, be on the lookout for that if you would like to learn more about that program. All right. Okay, great. I have another good question here from Baruani. Um, how will you make sure that refugees above targeted age groups, so maybe refugees who are in the 30 to 45 age range, but above the targeted age of 25 years, are also accessing scholarship opportunities or other education opportunities offered by your organizations? Would anyone like to jump in here and talk about educational opportunities for adults beyond a younger target age? If not, I will move on to another
And
question. Oh, Faranga or
there-
Asia?
yeah, there are different scholarship and their age limits are different. Like there are some scholarship for PhD. I was a DAFI scholar in Pakistan. The age limit for DAFI scholarship was from 18 to 35. So there was a girl, she was very discouraged. She said, my age is 34 and nobody's gonna give me the scholarship program. So I went and I spoke with the DAFI manager. He said, our age limit is 35, so we can give her the scholarship program. So they should look for some scholarships like that who can offer them scholarship programs. And in the universities, there are some programs. They are also offering you the scholarship. They also have no age limit. Like they will offer to them the scholarship program.
Great. Thank you, Asia. And I imagine that's one thing that TRSN does is help refugees kind of identify the opportunities that align with that person's age or other kind of factors. So thank you so much for sharing more about that. Another question from attendees. So this one is about how in many African contexts, refugees face restrictions in accessing formal labor markets. How can education and skills programs be designed to remain relevant and impactful even within constrained policy environments?
Um, Maybe just a quick maybe reflection that based on the reports like from ILO, International Labor Organization, specifically when they look into the job market, it's very obvious that majority of low middle income countries, including African countries, uh, they say around 70-80% of job market is like informal sector. So that's the overall situation, meaning that's the big challenge or big kind of, I don't know, I mean, the reality on the ground that even for the nationals, actually, when they graduate from any pipeline of educations, they usually get access to informal sector. So, and we keep hearing that the countries, they try actually to formalize, to work on that actually like transition from informal to formal, but still, you know, I mean, majority of these countries still they see the big and the massive part of the job opportunities they are on in informal sector. So that's the reality, honestly. So that's why when it comes to refugees, uh, we really want to even make sure that if even there is a chance of, let's say, internship opportunities, we don't go actually directly to formal sector. We look into any chance, even in informal sector, because at the end of the day, you know, I mean, that's the way it creates a kind of, you know, step to income generating stage, you know, for refugees, also for the nationals. So, and we don't have that much, honestly, I mean, flexibility on that because we are dealing with this big reality.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you for highlighting the way that education and training can be focused on both informal job opportunities as well as formal opportunities in places where there are constrained policy environments for labor market access. So my final question for anyone who wants to answer is, in one sentence, what is the most important shift needed to advance education as a driver of refugee self-reliance?
Yeah, from my side, as UNHCR, actually, we understand that we need to work more closely internally with different sectors and with different divisions of UNHCR. So working together, because we are still actually disconnected internally between some divisions of UNHCR. So education, livelihoods, self-reliance, economic inclusion, private sector partnership, all they should work together. Doesn't matter formal or non-formal education, because there are so many actually synergies we should explore. So I don't blame anyone outside. So I personally believe that we as UNHCR, we should work closely with our internal actually like divisions to make more synergies. And of course, we should work also with other agencies closer as well.
Thank you, Amir. So stronger coordination across the different sectors. Wonderful. Asia, I think I saw you might have a response as well.
Yeah, I raised my hand and then I thanked only one person, so Amir did answer. So I will say that we need to see higher education for refugee not as a luxury, but as an important path to self-reliance, leadership, and opportunity.
Great. Thank you so much for summarizing that so beautifully. Any other final sentences, Becky?
Sure, yeah. So I think one shift that we see at Girl Forward is a shift from like just serving refugees, right, to investing in their leaderships and futures. So that would include like a move away from like access to education only, like at a bare minimum, but access to education that's like holistic, that builds agency, right, belonging, and then builds these real pathways to opportunity. And then for us at Girl Forward, it's like that means like a space to dream and see their futures, right, for the girls and envision that.
Thank you, Becky. Maranga?
Uh, I believe we have to move to ensure that data, there is continuous data on the market trends to inform refugees on the kind of education they can take, because we understand that technology is moving very fast, and the job market and jobs are changing. So I think data-driven policy that tracks refugees from the onset to the point of completion will ensure that there is a continuous monitoring and continuous support beyond what is provided currently. Thank you.
Thanks, Maranga. And Buhendwa, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. I think one point that I have is really as many organizations that are providing support to refugees, higher education should also open up to include refugees in some of their programs, because there are pathways also within these organizations that refugees can benefit from. But many a times it's looked at as an exception, having a refugee within the team. And if we can start looking at it from the sense where these very individuals we are supporting have skills and they have the expertise, and or they can be supported, you can build their capacities to really see themselves take leadership and be what they want to become. It can also be a motivating factor to uh, others that really are starting to see education as just access and there's nothing to it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Buhendwa, and thank you to all of our speakers and panelists for the really valuable insights you've shared today and examples and stories from your organizations and your own lives. So before formally closing our session, I just wanted to turn everyone's attention to a link I put in the chat for a quick 30-second survey about your experience engaging with this session. Your feedback will really help us to improve future webinars as part of the RSRI's 12 months, 12 domains COP learning series. So please take 2 minutes to fill out that survey if you're able to. But I'd like to highlight some key takeaways from this event. We started with Amir's presentation, which really highlighted the education is not just about access, but also about outcomes, and how there's a critical gap in providing practical hands-on experiences that are education-based for refugees to be able to get the skills to succeed in employment and to, follow a self-reliance pathway. We've talked about how education is important throughout the lifespan, from early childhood to secondary and tertiary education. That education goes beyond learning, but also can inspire hope and motivation and support entire households and communities. That there's value in supporting refugees' passions and dreams, and also linking them with mentors and other people in their community that can help to support their progression toward their futures. Yeah, we've talked about so much more policy gaps and how programs can be improved as well, to be more holistic and to support the way that education is connected with mental health, livelihoods, health and well-being, safety, and other domains of self-reliance. So again, thank you so much to our speakers. We will share out the recording and more education and self-reliance resources via our Community of Practice newsletter. So please be sure to sign up via our website if you have not already. And again, thanks for joining. Thanks to the panelists. And we look forward to seeing everyone for next month's webinar, which will be focused on access to healthcare and refugee self-reliance. So again, thank you so much. Please take the survey if you can, and we hope to see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.